Hello and welcome. I'm Ruby Barlow and you are watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some headlines of this hour. US President Trump confirms that US forces are in a very strong position as Iran's leadership suffers rapid losses. Trump rates the US war effort in the ongoing Middle East conflict 15 out of 10, claiming Iran's key missile capabilities are being wiped out. US submarine strike hit an Iranian vessel off Sri Lanka's southern coast, killing at least 80 people thousands of kilometres from the Gulf. As fighting paralysed shipping through the Strait of Hormuz for a fifth day, choking off vital Middle East oil and gas flows. US Senate Republicans backed President Donald Trump's military campaign against Iran on Wednesday, voting to block a bipartisan resolution aiming to require congressional authorization. The Senate voted 53 to 47 not to advance the resolution, largely along party lines. Turkey said that NATO air defences destroyed an Iranian ballistic missile headed into Turkish airspace on Wednesday, marking the first time the alliance member has been drawn into the Middle East conflict and raising the possibility of a major expansion involving its bloc allies. An independent United Nations probe investigating rights violations in Iran condemned attacks by Israel and the United States, as well as Tehran's retaliatory strikes, saying they violated the UN Charter. It also expressed deep shock over the strike on a primary school in southern Iran on Saturday, where more than 160 children were killed. Nepal begins voting today in a general election that will choose a new parliament in the Himalayan nation, nearly 6 months after a wave of unprecedented youth-led protests and the deaths of 77 people that forced Nepal's then Prime Minister to quit. Investor anxiety calmed after a news report that Iran had signalled openness to talks and a pledge by President Donald Trump to steady oil markets as US stocks closed up on Wednesday. Investors flocked again to tech shares, lifting the Nasdaq by 1.29%. A big tech industry group consisting of major Anthropic backers Amazon and Nvidia on Wednesday expressed concern over the Pentagon's decision to declare the artificial intelligence company a supply chain risk, as other investors raced to contain fallout from the lab's fight with the US Defense Department. And now to our top story. Iran's foreign minister has accused the United States of striking the Iranian frigate in international waters without warning, saying it is a move that could set a dangerous precedent and one that would be deeply regretted by Washington. The frigate was on a visit as a guest of India's Navy and reportedly carried nearly 130 sailors. As a result of the attack, it was sunk in the incident, with many crew members rescued, while others injured or remained missing. Meanwhile, in related developments, Iranian state media reports that explosions have been heard in both Tehran and Karaj, amid rising tensions in the region. Locally, residents have reported hearing multiple blasts in and around the capital, though authorities have provided limited details on the cause of or targets of those blasts. Now joining us live, we have retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh, who is a Defence and International Relations Analyst in New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us again, Himanshi. It's a pleasure to have you back. Now, are you surprised by the news that Iran was carrying out an exercise as a guest of India, considering that India and Israel have very close relations?
Good morning, Ruby. Yes, definitely I'm surprised and shocked equally, because these sailors were not part of that war which is going on in the Middle East. They were on a friendly exercise here, and when they have been attacked, they were unarmed soldiers. They were not in any way participating in this war. So somewhere I feel US is trying to escalate the war beyond the Middle East, and this is a step in that direction. So I think Iran has to take cognizance of this, and when they have Iran has issued a very serious warning. So they are trying to say that the deterrence has to be followed, otherwise both Tel Aviv and Washington have to pay the price. See, that is why they have said that Israel's most sensitive facility like Dimona Nuclear Research Center will be attacked, because Israel and US are going on attacking Natanz, Isfahan, and other facilities of Iran. They have not yet targeted the Bushehr, which is controlled by Russia. So somewhere they are trying to have their boundaries very clear, but they are trying to go all out after Iran. So now I feel, the stakes are much higher after you have killed 80 Iranian sailors in a unnecessary provoking fashion. So if you are entering a maritime battlefield in the territory of international waters, which is prohibited, you are somewhere actually provoking Iran to come back and fire at you from anywhere in the world and go after your soldiers and even civilians somewhere. So the real question is not about if tensions are rising. The real question is whether the key players are ready to follow the red lines. If Tehran, Israel, and Washington and Tel Aviv, they're trying to go for a full-scale war, so be it. Because this is not merely attacking a ship; it is attacking a ship in international waters where some international rules have to be followed. So I think Iran's threatening the nuclear facilities in Demona is extremely serious because it is a facility where, not just the research happens, it is also a heavily protected strategic site of the world. So if Iranian regime collapses, we already know there are two sections of the regime in Israel. One is IRGC and second is the elected democratic government. IRGC, since it is a mosaic kind of formation, it is now having its independent operation irrespective of what orders are coming from the central government, because that was designed in that way. So if they are provoked, the retaliation is going to be very, very heavy. We are already seeing what the entire Middle East is burning. And if you're trying to throw it to the Asian subcontinent in Pacific region, it means they are going to retaliate because they are more powerful in asymmetrical warfare because of Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthi. And we also know the presence of Hezbollah in these regions of Kashmir and around that. And even in Nepal and Bangladesh, we know these terrorist groups exist. So if you're trying to provoke Iran in this region, then somewhere you are trying to push the boundaries of getting these countries into the war in which they are not participating. God bless the government of Sri Lanka, who's trying to save these sailors. What the report suggests that almost 40 sailors have been saved so far because they acted very promptly. But I think 80 soldiers have already died. So somewhere, the war is being spread. Earlier also, in US-Iran conflict, during Operation Mantis, US had already done something like this, it is not unprecedented, but it is uncalled for. So I think they should also try to have some restraint to avoid massive retaliation from Iranian side. Over to you.
Himanshi, please don't go far and keep those thoughts as we move to our next update. Iran has warned that it will target Israel's Dimona nuclear site if the United States and Israel attempt to enforce regime change in the Islamic Republic. According to reports, the warning came from an Iranian military official. The statement comes amid heightened tensions following the ongoing conflict between Iran and its adversaries, which includes Israeli and US strikes. This marks a sharp escalation in rhetoric as both nations remain locked in a military confrontation. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed concern over the Secretary Council's disunity amid escalating tensions in the Middle East. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric urged Council members to work toward common ground for peace and security. He also addressed the bombing of a girls' school in southern Iran, calling for accountability for the over 160 killed. The UN highlighted rising military activities and stressed the importance of respecting international law, especially concerning the Strait of Hormuz, warning that any closure would severely impact the global economy. Let's listen in.
No, frankly, we've been concerned about the lack of unity in the Security Council for some while now in dealing with a number of issues. I think the Security Council has a primary responsibility in the maintenance of peace and security, and we encourage members to find common ground to that end. There will need to be accountability for those who are responsible for these deaths. We're like you, we're seeing this increase in military rhetoric. We're seeing the increase of military activity. We're seeing the expansion of this conflict to other areas. You mentioned the Turkish airspace. I think that was the first time that's happened since this conflict started. In this conflict, like many others, like every other conflict, let's be clear, the Secretary General is not the one with his finger on the trigger, right? He will continue to push for diplomacy, a return to negotiation, a respect for international law, and trying to convince enough countries to move.
Joining us again, we have retired Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh, who is a Defence and International Relations Analyst in New Delhi. Now, Himanshi, of course, this update picks up on your previous comments about Iran's threatening to attack the nuclear facilities in Israel. We know that Iran was enriching uranium to around 60%, which is short of weapons capabilities, but well above the needed purity for energy purposes. They also didn't let the IAEA inspectors view their facilities. So what do we know about Israeli nuclear capabilities, and what could it mean if Iran does successfully carry out a strike on the Israeli facilities?
Ruby, I personally feel this is very personal opinion that Khomeini was a biggest buffer. As he said, in Islam, you are not supposed to be having this nuclear bomb. Okay, so they have just reached up to 60. We don't know where this 440 kgs of enriched uranium is as of now. The moment these people are going after Iran, you know, they have actually, by killing Khomeini, taken off that buffer. He was playing a game of chess. IRGC is now into all-out boxing. So when you are playing a game of chess, there is some patience, there are some strategies, and that is why they were trying to negotiate with US to actually handle this entire situation very, very carefully. However, earlier also, when Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan were attacked, and President Trump himself had said they have destroyed these nuclear facilities, but there was no confirmation of any nuclear radiation or leak that came after that. So somewhere that operation was a total failure because it has just damaged facilities, but no traces of nuclear were seen by anybody, no satellite, nothing has talked about it. Now you are pushing a country by taking off 40, 50 of their senior leadership, then you go on bombarding with almost 130 students, girl students have died, and we have seen the mass burial of these small little girls. If you force a country to pushing them and by killing innocent children, not just eliminating the military and strategic leadership, but by killing innocent people, I think they should have the right to possess a nuclear weapon, because countries possessing nuclear weapon are not holding bars. You are going and doing carpeting bombing inside Tehran and other cities. So if you are crossing the red lines, please allow other people also to blur those red lines. If Iran is threatening to target Dimona nuclear facility in Israel's, it's a doomsday deterrent. By linking the threat especially to the regime change, Tehran is signaling that if the existence of Islamic Republic is at stake, they will ignore all the previous taboos regarding nuclear sites, because mind you, Israel is already bombing their nuclear sites. So if the question is to be asked from Iran, the same question has to be asked from Israel and US also. So we cannot have double standards and hypocrisy. You know, if a nuclear site in Natanz is dangerous for the people, same as the nuclear site in Dimona. So let's have the same standards. Nobody's listening to IAEA or UNSC. So the trigger here is the joint US-Israeli strikes. You know, the code name as Roaring Lion and Epic Fury. Somewhere the fury has been unleashed in the Middle East now. And if you're killing the high-ranked officials, you have already taken off the people who were more into strategically thinking and displaying the military might. Now what we have, a trained and structured army, but no thinking head. So they are going on independently attacking the thing. So I think the radical core of IRGC has been unleashed. If there is a strike on Dimona, which will result in immediate and devastating nuclear response from Israel, this will potentially, not end the conflict, but it will it will somewhere spark the war in other places also, and the nuclear escalation by sinking the frigate IRIS Dimona. US is actually trying to spread the war, which I'm continuously saying that they are not trying to bring it down. And mind you, Iran is the only standing military power which produces their own ballistic missiles and drones. So somewhere they can sustain the war very long. US and Israel are not prepared for a very long war because they are already fatigued with long engagements in various places of the world. So I feel this happens after this Dimona, after drowning the IRS Zena. Don't be surprised. It is coming in a very hard way. Ruby.
Lieutenant Colonel Hanchi Singh, please stay with us as we move to our next story. As to the United States, where US Secretary of State Marco Rubio condemned attacks on NATO ally Turkey's sovereignty after an Iranian missile veered off course and was intercepted by NATO air defenses. Rubio called the attacks unacceptable and pledged full US support for Turkey. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan responded, saying Turkey had issued clear warnings to prevent such incidents in the future. The debris from the missile fell on Turkish soil, with operations to recover it taking place in southern Turkey. Turkey has also summoned Iran's ambassador to protest the missile strike. Listen in.
Bu sabahki olayda olduğu gibi NATO müttefiklerimizle yakın istişare içinde her türlü önlemi alıyoruz ve anında gerekli müdahalede bulunuyoruz. Bir daha benzer hadiselerin yaşanmaması için de uyarılarımızı en net biçimde.
Joining us again, we have Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh, who is a Defence and International Relations Analyst in New Delhi. Now, just quickly, Lieutenant Colonel Singh, why would Iran attack their enemy's enemy? Of course, Israel and Turkey have quite an antagonistic relationship.
Turkey occupies the most strategic geographical positions in the world. It controls the Bosporus Strait, but it is also a member of NATO. And somewhere, this location is very, very critical. And when we see this missile coming and hitting somewhere in Turkey, we can also discount it as a accidental or a trajectory deviation. But we understand the political signal is very, very significant because in this volatile conflict and the environment, missile going cross border can quickly transform into regional or multi-alliance crisis. See, we know that Washington has issued a very, very strong statement by calling the attack unacceptable because somewhere, United States does not want that NATO should become a part of it in a collateral damage because it will result in a big, broader regional conflict. So they are trying to manage the crisis somewhere so that it does not escalate. But if this missile incidents treated as a isolated incident, then tensions may calm down. But if such incidents repeat, Turkey will get involved because Turkey was trying to have a very, very delicate balance between Iran and US. So somewhere that red line, as I said, is getting crossed time and again. And things are getting very serious because Turkey sits between Europe, Middle East and Black Sea. And this conflict will engage NATO and it will also engage Russia, and Middle East security dynamics will change. So if no other incident like this takes place, we can actually discount it as a rogue incident which could have happened by mistake.
Lieutenant Colonel Himanshi Singh, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you on and hear your thoughts. Now, as we move to our next story, Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Ukraine of carrying out a terrorist attack that sunk a Russian gas carrier off the coast of Libya earlier this week. Putin has described the incident as a terrorist act and claimed that it is not the first time Ukraine has been responsible for such actions. Moreover, in a separate development, Putin has suggested that Russia could stop supplying gas to European markets and shift to more promising markets. Let's listen into his statements.
Всегда была и остается надежным поставщиком энергоресурсов для всех наших партнеров, в том числе, кстати говоря, и для европейских. И мы и будем работать именно в таком режиме с теми нашими партнерами, которые сами являются надежными нашими контрагентами, ну, с такими, например, как на Восточной Европе, как Словакия, как Венгрия. Мы поставляем туда энергоносители наши, и нефть, и газ, и намерены это делать в будущем, если, конечно, руководство этих стран будет проводить такую же политику, как и сегодня, а именно будут для нас надежными партнерами. Что происходит сегодня на европейских рынках, это, конечно, прежде всего результат ошибочной политики европейских властей в сфере. Сейчас действительно поднялись цены и на нефть, и на газ. И что касается нефти, то понятно, это связано в том числе ограничениями на российскую нефть. И вот дополнительно все, что происходит сейчас на Ближнем Востоке, с агрессией в отношении Ирана, все это накладывается одно на другое и приводит вот к такому непростому, тяжелому, прямо скажем, для потребителя.
This comes as the European Commission is set to present a legal proposal to permanently ban Russian oil imports on April 15th, just days after Hungary's parliamentary election. Putin has reiterated that Russia has always been a reliable energy supplier and will continue to work with reliable partners like Slovakia and Hungary. Moreover, Putin has commented that Europe's intention to restrict Russian gas purchases may make it more profitable for Russia to seek out new markets instead. Ukraine has, of course, as the war between Ukraine and Russia continues, the attention has turned to the Middle East, where Israel, Iran, and the United States have become a hotspot in the region. The Libyan Port Authority said the Russian tanker was hit by sudden explosions followed by a massive fire, which ultimately led to its complete sinking just north of Libya. So there has been no immediate comment from Ukraine. However, Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Ukraine of attacking the gas carrier and has characterized it as a terrorist attack. The boat had been carrying liquefied natural gas from the Arctic port of Murmansk and was attacked by Ukrainian naval drones launched from the coast of Libya, according to Russia's transport ministry. It said that all the 30 crew members, Russian nationals, were safe and thanked Maltese rescue services. And now to our next story, to Latin America, where Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has announced plans to submit a reform of the country's main mining law to the National Assembly in the coming days, following talks with US Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, in Caracas. According to reports, the move aims to attract foreign investment, particularly from US mining and mineral firms, potentially bringing billions of dollars and thousands of jobs to Venezuela. Meanwhile, reports suggest that US Interior Minister Doug Burgum is expected to meet with oil and gas companies today to discuss expansion and investments. Let's listen in to what President Rodriguez had to say.
Quiero igualmente agradecer al presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, que en medio de nuestra reunión escribió un post, saludando lo que es esta agenda de trabajo entre el gobierno de los Estados Unidos y el gobierno de Venezuela.
Now to the United States, the White House has announced that the US President Donald Trump will host leaders from 12 Latin American nations this weekend in Miami, Florida. The summit, scheduled for March the 7th, aims to promote freedom, security, and prosperity in the region. Countries attending include Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, and Trinidad and Tobago, with additional participants possibly joining. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt highlighted the summit's focus on addressing criminal gangs, narco-terrorism, and illegal migration. This gathering reflects a historic coalition of Latin American nations working to tackle these critical issues together. Let's listen in.
I would also add that this weekend, I'm pleased to announce, the President will welcome the heads of state from 12 nations across our Western Hemisphere in Miami, Florida on Saturday. The point of this newfound Latin America summit is to promote freedom, security, and prosperity in our region. The following countries will be in attendance: Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, Paraguay, Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe some others as well. And the President will be speaking with the leaders of this country who have really formed a historic coalition to work together to address criminal narco-terrorist gangs and cartels and counter illegal and mass migration into not only the United States but the Western Hemisphere, which remains a key and top priority of this President. Thank you very much, everyone, and you'll see the President yourself.
And that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.